Okay, it's the Steve Marston Show. Thank you for your company. We are thrilled and delighted to be with you as always. It's time to welcome in our special guest, and this guy is a first-timer here on the show. He's the pastor of Heights Community Church. His name is Ken Hicks. Ken, welcome in, brother. Good to have you.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Well, it is a pleasure for us to have you on the program. So let's talk a little bit about how you came to know Christ and how your foundation of faith led you to a calling of being a pastor, and what that all looked like.
Yeah, I had a blessing of really growing up in a home where my mom and dad were for sure chasing after Jesus. I like to say I had a drug problem as a kid, though. I got drugged to church every time the doors were open.
Sure.
But ultimately, for me, I knew a lot about the Bible, but I was 15 and at camp for the first time, actually, August 2nd, 1985. We were out at Mo Ranch here in Texas in the hill country. And that relationship for me went from knowing all about Jesus to starting to know him on a real and personal level. And so that night I exchanged my life with Christ and decided I wanted to have a personal relationship with him. I remember going back to the cabin at night. I was pumped and told our guys, I said, man, I want y'all to pray for me, man. I accepted Jesus tonight. And they all just kind of looked at me like, man, we thought you'd already done that. I didn't drink, smoke, cuss, or chew, or date the girls that do. Like I was at church all the time. But for me, it wasn't a relationship. It was just a thing we did, and it was information and education. It just wasn't transformation. And so that journey started for me at 15 in a personal way, but I certainly had a strong foundation for that. My dad was gracious enough, not knowingly, it wasn't even on purpose, but I really kind of learned how to read the Bible and study the Bible by watching my dad do it, and why he sat down with different colors of markers and what those things meant for him in the Word of God. And I kind of picked up small pieces of that through my life along the way. And then went to college, came back, was playing basketball in college, and started coaching college basketball. And I had a season where I kind of walked away from the Lord. But the beauty of God is he didn't walk away from me. And at about 21, I decided to come back to him. And I said, Lord, I don't know what this looks like, but I was coaching college basketball at the time. And I said, hey, I'll give you 1 year. And then I'm going to go back to coaching college basketball, because I thought that's what I was supposed to be doing, and I loved it, and I was good at it, and it was awesome. And so I spent 1 year at the church that I was going to when I exchanged my life with Jesus here at Trinity Baptist in San Antonio, a pastor named Buckner Fanning at the time. And 1 year led to 2 years. About the middle of that third year, I started going, man, I really enjoy this too, right? I'm not sure maybe this is what God's called me to do. And so I started seminary about halfway through that third year, and switched from student ministry into a season of sports ministry. And that was kind of a great fit of both places, where I could use my love for sports and my love for Jesus and combine those two things to go reach people for the gospel. So I finished seminary and finished working there at Trinity Baptist in that space, went to Mountain Home, Arkansas for 5.5 years and served up there, built the Christian Life Center that's up there now, and still going strong in that community. We spent about 5.5 years up there, and then came back to San Antonio in 2004 for me to start a sports ministry at a church here in town. And we got that thing off the ground, and then in 2009 decided to leave that big experience and go start a church from our living room. So we birthed Heights Community Church together with the Lord in 2009.
That is amazing. I want to go back to something that you brought up at the very first part of your story, and that is the church camp experience. I know for my own itself and the lives of my kids how important church camps usually are, because you're right. So often kids that grow up in church know all the right answers and can spout out everything, the Sunday school way. But when they have an opportunity to just kind of get away from everything, especially this day and age with all the cell phones and all the tech, and just be able to focus on Jesus for a week out in the middle of nowhere in cabins with a bunch of other believers, it's a very special thing, isn't it?
Oh, no doubt. And I mean, again, sometimes what happens is we know all the right answers and be living differently. And in my case, I mean, I knew all the right answers, and my life looked like it too. It just wasn't a relationship. It was just kind of like going to school. I'd go to school and make all A's too, right? I can go to school, I show up, I do it, I do my part, I do my homework, I come back, I can produce the information. But it's just different. And when you get away from all of those things, the Lord has a way of kind of allowing you to see him because we're not quite as distracted. And that's for sure one of Satan's greatest tools in our culture, I think, overall still today is just, I don't have to win. I just need to keep you distracted from him, and I still win. So we do camp at our church. We do family camp for our families, and then we do take our students to a student camp. But it is for sure a great place for the Lord to have some opportunity to connect in new ways.
Yeah, absolutely. We're visiting here with Ken Hicks. He is the pastor and lead pastor, I guess is the best way to say it, at Heights Community Church, and he joins us here on the Steve Marston Show. And we kind of went through your bio kind of quickly, but I also want to go back and talk about your college experience and that kind of decision path you were on after, playing college basketball and then coaching college basketball. I mean, a lot of times people would say that that's it. And then when you felt that tug to kind of go back to church, walk us through those days. How tough was it for you to make that decision to drop college basketball and to give full-time ministry a chance for a year?
Yeah, that's interesting. Once I decided to come back to Jesus, and again, it wasn't him that moved. I just started chasing another God, right? Mm-hmm. The whole goal was putting the ball in a basket and enjoying everything that came with that. And unfortunately, I missed an incredible opportunity on our college campus to use it for the glory of God, which stinks. But his grace was sufficient in that space. And so once I decided to come back, whether it was coaching college basketball or doing ministry or whatever, I think I was going to start steering in that direction of at least being in communion with him. And if I'm just being honest, it wasn't a crazy difficult decision to set it down for a year. I had the lowest coaching job on the totem pole. Mm-hmm. They don't pay anything hardly. I mean, you can't even hardly live on it. Nobody wants the job, and based off of relationships and things I had experienced, I could go get that job somewhere in the country anytime. Mm-hmm. So the thought process was, hey, I'll just set this low job on the totem pole. But again, I'm 21, so no big deal. Like, everybody's supposed to have the low job on the totem pole at 21. And so I'll set it down for a year, and then I'll just pick it back up, go somewhere else. Whether I go back to the same university or somewhere else, those jobs are a dime a dozen. Mm-hmm. So it didn't feel like I was laying my whole career aside. I just thought it was going to be for 1 year and not, we're on year 32 now. So
yeah. Isn't it crazy how that happens, right? You figure, okay, because I have a similar story in a different kind of way. Like, my wife really said, once we got married and started having kids, she would like to stay home and be a stay-at-home mom. That was her biggest dream and biggest desire, much more than anything else she would want to accomplish, career-wise. And I said, okay, we could try it for a year and see what happens. And then guess what? That turned into 25 years,
Right, yep.
And so
so I didn't have this Paul on the road to Damascus experience in that for sure. But God's been good, and he's been faithful. And I still gotten to coach. I coached my kid, I was a sports pastor, so I got to use all of that for, so many years. I got to coach my own kids. We did Upward, we did AAU stuff. My daughter had every opportunity she wanted to play in college as well, and 9 of our 10 AAU girls all played in college. And
wow.
So I kind of got to scratch that itch still within the confines of my first church, which was really cool too, right? To still get to coach, but get to do it with my own kids. And then got to do it at a Christian high school here in San Antonio once she went to college. And I did that for a few years as well. So, it's always been a piece of my story, but it's not been the piece of my story.
Right, right. Ken Hicks is our guest here on the Steve Marston Show. He's the pastor of Heights Community Church here in San Antonio. And I wanted to also bring up this, I found pretty interesting, 360 enrichment that you are started, because it's all about marriage and family. Talk a little bit about why this was created and what you've seen the Lord work through in and around the area with this.
Yeah, it's interesting. We as a church have a different model than many by design, not by need per se, but that is like nobody is full time at our church. Old school phrase that we used to use when I was in seminary is somebody would be considered bivocational.
Right.
And in that day and age, and I don't know if it's still the same. I graduated from seminary right after Moses, I think, so it's a long time ago. But in that day and age, I remember the feeling was if you were bivocational, it's because you weren't good enough to get a full-time job.
Yeah.
Basically, right? And that was just kind of nobody would say it out loud, but that was really what everybody felt. If you had to have another job, you just weren't good enough to get one that was your only job. And so we kind of coined the phrase with another buddy, and both of us have planted churches in this same lane, but co-vocational. We both left, the 15th largest church in the U.S. at the time. And we had jobs in the corner offices. It was great, and we each went and planted churches. And it's certainly not because we couldn't get a full-time job, but instead we're choosing to have another occupation. You looked at Paul; he had a different career. Jesus had a different career, and so I'm not sure where this lane came from, that this would be our only source of life and income and influence and all those sorts of things. And so we chose from the ground up to go, hey, listen, we're not going to be. My only source of income is not going to come from the church anymore. It had done that for a long time. And so, we started going, hey, I need to own my own business. I need to be in charge of the hours. I need to control the schedule. And I need it to be another place that I can leak the story of Jesus around me. And that way I can still make hospital visits. I can still go do funerals. I can still do the things the church needs. Whereas if I'm an employee at a bank 8 to 5, I can't just go, hey, somebody's having surgery, I got to go.
Right.
That kind of thing. So we have done it in such a way that we all, started companies, own businesses, and do that. And for me, one of the things I love doing, enjoy doing is speaking into the life of building healthy marriages and families. And I still believe if we could solve the crisis in the family in America, a lot of things would change, to be quite honest. And so I was already doing some marriage counseling, premarital counseling, all those sorts of things, and just started taking that to the business world and said, hey, do you realize what the cost of unhealthy families is costing your company? And it's mind-boggling, right? I mean, one employee leaves, a $20 an hour employee leaves, it costs you $12,000 for the year.
Right.
That's the estimated reboot cost, and that's just at a $20 an hour employee. Not to mention, hey, what happens when that person's your top salesperson, or when that's your VIP, your VP, or and so we started wrestling with how does this process work? How do we help build healthy families?
So in our final few seconds here together, tell us a little bit about your church services and how people can connect with you guys there at Heights Community Church and with Enrichment 360.
Yeah, so we're in the central part of our city, right near the airport, 281 in Bitters. We currently have one service, probably looking to change that pretty soon. That's in our conversations as we speak. But our current service is at 9:30 on Sunday mornings, and then community groups happen all throughout the week, all throughout the city. So we were 13 years old before we had a first campus. So everything about our culture was, hey, we had to figure out how to do life in the city. And so once we got a campus, we didn't want to change that. We didn't want people coming to the church all the time and us having to open it and closing it and watching their kids. And we already figured out how to do that without it. So we just left that culture built that way. So we call them community groups and kind of say that's where the secret sauce is in our life. And so we do community groups, and then we really, really try hard, which is kind of our connection with your friend Steve Teal as well, to go, hey, how do we make a difference in the city? And so if God had chosen to close our church, the question we're always asking is, would anybody notice that doesn't go to church here?
Yeah.
Are we making a difference in the city and ministry partnerships? And again, because so many of our resources are not allocated to staffing like they are in many cases, then it frees us up to spend so many of God's resources as we worship together in generosity into places that make direct kingdom impact. And so we focus a lot in places like snack packs for kids, peanut butter bowl with Steve, all that kind of stuff, feeding hungry kids, praying through schools, making sure, 600 children a weekend, our church does. We're hanging those bags every week, Thursday and Friday, praying over every one of those kids' names, making sure they eat. We do a ton with the South Texas Alliance for the Orphans and foster ministry, and Don't Go Alone, taking kids that age out of the foster system and building them into networks of relationship and family in our church, so they have somebody to call and be and do. And so, we're just constantly seeking these ministry places. We build beds for families that need beds in order to keep CPS from taking their kids. We, just with Sleep in Heavenly Peace, we just do a ton to go out and be his hands and feet. And we spend less on us, quote unquote, as a result. And for us at our campus, we're okay with that. So that's kind of the DNA of who we are.
That is amazing. What is you guys' website for more information?
HeightsCC.com, HeightsCC.com.
Well, Ken Hicks, you're obviously a very busy man, and I'm thankful for the way you're allowing God to use you in all these different areas and the way he's opening up doors for you. And it's just a pleasure to be able to talk to you. God bless you, my friend. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Steve. Have a blessed day.